Welcome to WYCD Wicked. I just wanted to talk with you for a moment about Cornel West and my thoughts on his candidacy. Um, I think progressives, or rather, let's say this, progressives very broadly, not just the commentators, but to some degree the audience as well. They are giving Cornel West a hell of a lot of leeway. I think people are in the let him cook phase of this particular run. But I'm not thrilled with him, if I'm honest. And I get the sense that a lot of other progressive types feel the same way. The issue is this. He has been an activist his whole life. He's been on the right side of most issues, particularly at times when most people weren't. There's a hell of a lot to be said for that. He has selflessly pursued the betterment of other people's lives. That's how he spent his time. So as far as character goes, he's unimpeachable. As far as, from what we can tell from his actions, I've never met the man. Maybe secretly at home he's the devil. but I doubt it based on how he's chosen to spend his existence on earth. I wouldn't want him to be president. Not based off what he has said recently. Set aside every other candidate running, and I would not vote for Cornel West. In his announcement, when he got on TV with his longtime friend and said that he was going to run for president, he essentially said we would rethink our commitment to helping Ukraine.
There must be a stopping of that war. Why? We're on the road to nuclear war. That's the last thing we want to see, my dear sister.
And as president, what exactly would you do to stop that war?
Oh, one is I would pull back on the U.S. military support. I would sit down with the elites from the Chinese empire, given all of their forms of regimentation and repression in their own context. Think about our precious Muslim brothers and sisters in China, the Uyghurs. But I would sit down with the Chinese. I would sit down with the Ukrainians. I would sit down with the Russians and say, we're going to stop this war, and we're going to come up with a plan, a process with a variety of voices heard to make sure that the suffering stops and we understand and we're honest about the larger context of the war.
And I've noticed that a lot of progressives are still pining for him to actually be president. Now, setting aside the conversation about fascism encroaching, genuine dictatorship being in the cards and in fact probable if a Republican wins in 2024. Setting that aside, I find it very difficult to believe that a fully informed progressive would support Cornel West after what he said about Ukraine. To be clear, he wants to try to work out a peace agreement. An agreement? Okay, yeah, Russia can agree to stop invading, and that's the end of it. There's nothing further to discuss with Russia. No agreement needs to be reached. A surrender needs to be reached from Russia. That's what needs to be reached. Funny enough, despite the fact that I have supported no war that existed during my lifetime whatsoever. I support doubling and tripling down on the weapons we send to Ukraine because I want Putin to do the math and come up with the figure that they don't have enough body bags to transport their soldiers home. He can't sell that to his people. That's what I want for that. Not because I want those bags filled, but because I don't want them slowly filled over the course of 5 or 10 years. I would rather Ukraine hit them hard and puff their chests out, and that's the end of it. But why then? Why would Cornel West say he supports this? Let's just be clear, in case you didn't know. Russia invaded Ukraine essentially on a lark. Putin was in the KGB. Putin wants Soviet-style Russia to return. That's not a good thing. Soviets were to communism what the Nazis were to socialism, essentially in name only. They set up oligarchies which took over their country. Putin has expressed on multiple occasions a desire to unite Russia, Belarus, and Ukraine as the beginning of a new Soviet empire. I would hope that progressives have learned enough from history already. Ukraine politely but firmly said they don't want to be a part of that. So why would Cornel West turn around and say, oh, let's talk peace? Because he couched what he was saying in terms that would appeal to a progressive audience. But what he was not saying was very progressive in my estimation. Certainly it wasn't right. It wasn't a good read of the situation for a man who's famous for having good reads. I think it's because he knew that he would have to make a splash by appealing to MAGA types. I think Cornel West, being the strategic fella that he is, saw the same charts that I'm fascinated by. Who won in the Democratic primaries in places where Trump won in the general? Bernie Sanders. I think West is trying to tap in to their populism, and he sees that a lot of progressives are just as misinformed as MAGA types. A lot of progressives fell for the same Russian propaganda that MAGA folks have. Or maybe they fell for different Russia propaganda. See, the MAGA folks fell for the lie that the Jewish, by the way, Zelensky is a Nazi, and they're denazifying Ukraine. Progressive folks fell for the Russification of our politics, the idea that Russia equals communism and communism equals good. First of all, neither of those things are true. Second of all, I would prefer to live in a communist country over a libertarian hellscape. But understand that's all propaganda that progressives fell for when it comes to Ukraine. For those progressives that hold the opinion that we in some way shouldn't be helping these people who are getting attacked, who, by the way, we agreed to help if they agreed to give up their nukes, and they held their end of the bargain, so we are obligated. Make no mistake. Why? I think because he wants to appeal to both of those crowds. He wants to get enough of a percentage of both of those crowds to get a maybe not even a victory, but to get an upset of some kind, a surprising showing in the polls. What seems off about that to me, and why I have why I and I think a lot of other progressives have held back on West a lot, is that that kind of callousness doesn't line up with the character he's displayed so far. But I have a theory, and I want you to understand it's a theory. I've never met Cornel West. I have heard him when he had a radio show, but even then, not regularly. So I'm by no means an expert. This is just a hunch. Guy grew up in America, and he grew up having no choice but to be keenly aware that people who happen to share one physical trait of his got the short end of the stick. Always. Always. No matter what. He's also keenly aware that Americans don't give a damn about anything outside of their borders, or at least they didn't used to. But Americans are much more comfortable with brutality when we don't have to see it, and they're much more comfortable sacrificing millions of people if we don't have to see it. And I think he looked at Ukraine and thought, well, I'm aging, and I don't want to leave this world without the next generation finally getting a fair shot at existence in the United States. And this country and my countrymen are going to brutally ignore the suffering of others, as they always have. So, why not make that deal? Why not doom this country? Permit this one genocide, this one little genocide. Because we genuinely have permitted others. So why not this one, if it means that somebody who actually gives a damn about all Americans can be the leader of all Americans? My answer to that, because I assume Mr. West is a fan. Doctor, excuse me, Jesus, there was an unnecessary insult. The man earned it. Dr. West, I assume he's a fan. My answer is this. The voting populace that would support Cornel West for president, they are going to find compromise of that level distasteful. The very things they like about Cornel West go away. They go away if he's willing to do a lot of evil on the gamble that he'll be able to do some good. That's underselling it to say some good. To do an equal amount of good. Let's call it that. That said, Cornel West is he's got a hell of a lot more experience than I do. A hell of a lot more years of experience than I do. And in any given chunk of his life, he was receiving more educated than this old chunk of, he was receiving more education than this old chunk of coal in any given equal chunk of my life. So, who the am I? He very well may have a clever plan. He might be trying to siphon off some of the crazy from MAGA at a time when we really need them to calm down. He may be trying to push the Democratic Party left by making them sweat a little bit. This might be part of some grander strategy. But it's my sincere hope, as he might say with all love to Dr. West, my sincere hope that his candidacy flames out. It's over with before the summer of 2024, long before, in fact. I don't want him on the ballot. I don't want him genuinely siphoning off votes because, as Benjamin Dixon pointed out,
as much as I absolutely love Dr. Cornel West, I'm not voting for him because I'm voting against fascism. I personally love everything that he stands for. I'm a student of his and will always admire him. But if we don't stop these monsters right here, right now, they have an executable agenda and a plan to wipe out democracy in the first 180 days of 2025. We can't play with that.
If a Republican wins next time around, and it's somebody like DeSantis, it's somebody like Trump, we're dealing with a dictatorship. And if it's even somebody like Christie or McConnell, the norms have been so eroded that it could very easily become a dictatorship if they decide they like the presidency enough that they're just not going to have the next election. So we can't mess around with that anymore. And further, we are making a statement literally for the history books. If Trump gets voted out of office after his first term, and then Biden gets voted out of office after his first term, to the history books, it's not going to look like there was a rejection of Trump so much as this was when politics became volatile. And it genuinely does matter what the chapter looks like in the history books about Trump's political demise. It genuinely does matter. Because this is the sort of thing that will echo throughout history. Trump is the person future corrupt-leaning presidents will think of when they're considering whether or not they're going to do a crime. Do I like Cornel West as a person? Yes. Do I think he's trying to screw over America? No. But I think his candidacy is, at best, poorly executed from where I'm standing. And I would hope that if you're a supporter of Cornel West now, you would have a hard look, not at the language he's using, but at what actual actions he's suggesting we take, the actual policy discussion. And that will tell you more about who he is trying to be now and who he is trying to appeal to now. Than however it is he makes you feel when he talks. And also, I could be totally wrong. I welcome your critique in the comments, because this is an ongoing conversation. And by the way, let the man cook. He's earned it. Let him cook for a little bit. He's running already. Hopefully, he can push the Democratic Party left. Okay, that's it.